Hey everybody, and welcome to Don't Copy That Floppy, your weekly video game news podcast, broadcasting live on twitch.tv/DCTF podcast. It is Friday, March 23rd, 2018. I'm your host, Lex, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Booge.
We're going to be talking about all sorts of news today, stuff about Nindies, stuff about Vivendi and Ubisoft, stuff about I don't remember what that story's about. Oh, unions. That's what it is. Unions.
Yes. Union.
A little bit of an update to the Star Wars Battlefront 2 saga, followed by Fortnite and PUBG continuing to duke it out, followed by a streamer who just seems like a good guy, and he's the new PewDiePie. That's what I will call him.
Oh God! Don't.
Just to taint his reputation a little bit.
Yeah, don't curse him with that title.
And then after that, we're going to talk about CD Projekt Red and their upcoming projects. Afterward, we're going to talk about games that just came out and games that are about to come out. There's a certain game that comes out today featuring a Mr. Ryan Reynolds, and no, it has nothing to do with Deadpool 2. So, let's jump into Nintendo Switch. This week had its Nindy showcase.
Wahoo!
11 minutes of indie games on the Switch presented by two very awkward men.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually didn't watch the whole thing.
I mean, it was
so
11 minutes, so I figured I could just watch the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. Sure.
I missed it when it was live, though, which I was a little bummed about because I wanted to watch it live and I just was not paying attention. But we have just a little article in Polygon that talks about all the different stuff. Mark of the Ninja Remastered, which didn't show any gameplay.
I think we all know what Mark of the Ninja is, though.
Yeah.
It's been around for a long time.
Fantasy Strike, which is actually a game that Dan got a chance to play at PAX last year when we went to PAX in 2017. And he loved the shit out of it. He thought it was a fantastic fighting game because of how you can only take, I think, like 6 hits.
Really?
And because your health bar is like cubes, and each time you get hit, one of them gets knocked off. So it's very strategic. You have to be very careful about like when you attack and stuff because it's super interesting. I've watched a little gameplay of it, but he thought it was a really, really cool take on a fighter.
What's it on currently?
Oh, I don't know. I'm actually not sure if it's come out yet because I was not paying attention that much to it.
It's an early access game on Steam, apparently.
Oh.
That sounds cool. That picture makes it look like a fake game. The picture makes it look that's like a South Park parody or something.
Oh.
Fantasy Strike.
Mm-hmm. Not made by Japanese people.
Yeah.
I can't remember who made it. I think it was Australians, because that was one of the themes of PAX East when we went. Is like almost every game that was there was like from an Australian company for some reason. Okay, so we got Just Beats and Shapes, also known as
Just Shapes and Beats.
And I don't know. It looks interesting. It's an interesting looking what was it described as? A bullet hell
musical bullet hell.
Yeah, musical bullet hell. So sure.
Okay. Sure.
Garage, which was a game that they could not show most of the gameplay for in the actual Nintendo Direct, and they said during the Direct that they couldn't because it was too grisly.
That's great.
Which makes me want to check it out a little more, but also just it looks very, I don't know, it just looks stupid.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, it's a top-down game, and it's like, oh, there's zombies, and they run after you, and you have to kill them, and then there's like monsters and things. And
this looks like a little bit of it looks like a Flash game or something.
Yeah, it feels like it's something that's already been done a million times. I think that's my big problem with it. Pool Panic, which is an Adult Swim game, I guess. And it's just a weird game where you play the cue ball and you're trying to find the 8-ball, and you go through all these different weird worlds where you like kind of play pool, but you also like walk around on legs. It's very strange looking.
It amazes me that how over the years Adult Swim games has become like semi legit, like that they publish like games now for systems on a pretty regular basis. It's amazing to me because like I remember back in the day when they just had like their little Flash games occasionally on their website, and yeah, I guess it's a big money industry
Yeah.
for them to do that.
We have Chicken Bomb, which actually
Chicken
looked
bomb.
delightful. I really loved the trailer for this game. You're a chicken that lays bombs instead of eggs.
Sure.
And you just lay bombs, and it's like a platformer, like a puzzle platformer type thing. What is this? Luminous?
Luminous, yeah, not Lumines, as you might think.
Lumines. I don't actually remember this one.
Luminous came out in for the PSP way back in the day, and yeah, I know that it has a pretty staunch following. There's some people that really love it, so yeah, they're happy about it, I guess. I never played it because I never had a PSP.
We had Reigns, Kings and Queens, which seems to be all about, I don't know, royalty simulator or something. It looked, I don't know, they showed gameplay of it, and I didn't really get a good feel of what you do in the game from watching the gameplay. And it also just didn't interest me very much. And because it was only the segment on each of these was like a minute, I just sort of like it fell out of my head because it didn't catch my attention. Lightfall is super pretty, and it is a fast-paced. I want to say platformer, but I don't think that's the word for it. But you're zooping across the screen, and
it looks like a platformer. It looks like a Super Meat Boy kind of.
Oh yeah. I mean, in terms of gameplay, in terms of graphics and art style, very different. But
yeah, the graphics remind me a bit of like Limbo or Inside, or maybe what was that? Oni and the Black Forest, in the Lost Forest. Was it? Yeah, was that the name of the game? Yeah, a little bit like that. No, super pretty. I like games. I like platformers where you're a little tiny guy and you're like have a big screen to jump around in really fast.
I just love being a little tiny guy.
And that's like being a little tiny guy.
So that looked kind of cool. West of Loathing. Okay, West of Loathing. I watched the trailer for this game, and in the trailer there was a lot of like jokes, and they looked really funny. But I hate stick figures so much. I just can't stand them. So
you weren't a fan of stick RPG back in the day on Newgrounds?
No. So I was watching this trailer, and the whole time I was just like cringing because I hate stick figure art so much.
Well, maybe they couldn't draw anything better, Lex.
Then they shouldn't have made a game that.
Oh my god!
Or they should have made a text-based game. That would have been
Lex
acceptable.
With the hot takes. The hot takes on how people should make games. No, it's I think it's. It doesn't bother me. I've watched gameplay of this game, and it's very amusing, very cool. There's a lot of thought put into it. I think there's a lot of because like it's not even just the stick figures. Like they use like Times New Roman for like the text and stuff. So I think there's a deliberate aesthetic going on here. But yeah, it's been on Steam for a long time, and coming to Switch, I guess.
Oh, how do you pronounce this one? Pody?
Pode?
Looked fun. Looked pretty. It's like it's the classic like look at this pretty indie game.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's I don't know, looked kind of interesting. I didn't get much out of it, but The Messenger, dude. Of course
you want this game.
I'm horribly bad at Ninja Gaiden, especially
everyone
the older
is.
ones.
Everyone's bad at Ninja Gaiden.
And that's basically what this game is. Man, It's like that pixel art is lush.
It is lush.
It's lush pixel art.
It is basically straight up ripping off Ninja Gaiden.
That's the thing. They don't really seem to put a different spin on it. It's just you're playing Ninja Gaiden for the SNES.
Yeah.
It's cool.
It is. Yeah, no, it looks cool. That kind of pixel art is hard to do, and there's not a lot of people that can do it well. So when it's done well, it's always a good sign.
We had Bad North, which looks like a little. Is it turn-based? I don't remember if it's turn-based, but you sort of gather units of an army and then defend against Vikings.
Mm-hmm. It says roguelite real-time strategy.
Oh. And it looked fun. Looked like a fun little indie game. It's the kind of game that if that's $3, sure, I'll grab it.
Sure. I actually really like the art style of this one.
Yeah.
Like the kind of sparse, almost voxely looking design.
So after that, let's see. Oh, the after that, the last and biggest announcement is that Banner Saga 3 is coming to Switch.
Yay.
And Banner Saga 1 and 2 will be coming sometime later, but they didn't specify.
Hmm.
So that's pretty awesome and makes sense because like Banner Saga is not a graphically demanding game.
No, it's been that's one of those series. It's been around for a while, and that's one of those series that I always knew that I would like if I played, but I just never. It just slipped by me every time that it comes out. But yeah, it's basically like a choose your own adventure slash tactics turn-based game.
Yeah, it's a visual novel slash
Yeah.
yeah, turn-based tactics
Hmm.
game, and which is interesting because yeah, like both parts of the gameplay are so heavily influenced by Japanese games,
Hmm.
but the content of the game is just all like Norse mythology stuff.
Yeah.
So that's super interesting, and it's I don't think it's made by a Japanese company. I
I
don't
don't
know if
think
it's made
so.
by an American studio. It might be made by a European studio, but like it is very clearly not a Japanese game in terms of how it like looks and how the dialogue plays out, all that
Hmm.
stuff.
If I
Uh,
remember correctly, the at least the first Banner Saga was made by like two guys.
mm. I
It was
believe it.
not
I
a big
mean,
team.
it's not a very demanding. It didn't look like a very demanding game to create or to run.
Hmm.
But man, very very satisfying to play. Really great story, really great characters, fantastic writing in it. I played the first one and I thought it was amazing. So
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
super
this is
happy.
interesting.
Yeah.
It was made by a trio of indie game developers formerly from BioWare.
Oh, I totally believe that. This
Yeah,
definitely has some Bioware esque writing in it.
there you go.
Um, Cool. So yeah,
Yeah,
that was a
indies.
nice thing. That's really the only announcement of note that came out of this.
Pretty
Uh,
much.
but it was a cool
Yeah.
announcement, I guess.
Yeah, this is, I mean, it's just Nintendo. Nintendo's been, I mean, they just had their Direct not that long ago, and now this, and they're just pushing full steam ahead as much as they can, taking advantage of their amazing sales of the Switch. However, this is kind of the tip of a possibly emerging problem I see on Switch, and I do not own a Switch. Maybe you can speak to this a little bit more definitively, but it seems like every like Thursday, when all the games that get released on Switch or all the games that are going to be released on Switch get announced, they're starting to be like a dumping ground for games. Like it's becoming like Steam almost, where it's just like there's so many games on there. I wonder if it's starting to be oversaturated. Now I don't own a Switch. Like when you use your Switch, do you go on and feel like maybe like you're overwhelmed with the amount of games that are on there yet, or
No,
does
not
it
yet.
seem not yet?
Because the amount of games added each week is still pretty low, especially compared to Steam. But I am seeing games that are added each week that are like this is trash. I don't nobody
Yeah.
cares about this,
Hmm.
and that makes me worry a little bit about it. I think we could definitely see the eShop eventually turn into something that's like Steam, but it's like we're not even near that point of saturation yet.
No.
The problem, though, is that there is no rating or review system with Switch games, or at least
Yeah.
I think I was reading something about how they introduced a rating and review system on their website, but it still wasn't on the eShop, and then they took it off their website. There's probably still something up online, I think, but yeah, on the eShop itself, there is nothing to tell you this game is good or bad or indicate how many people have purchased it or how many people are interested in it.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, that's something that they really, really, really need to add to the eShop, like as soon as possible. There is
Yeah.
a section that's for bestsellers. So you can go
Hmm.
to that and it just gives you the top like 20 or 30 games or something. But again, there's no numbers that you're seeing that's telling you why these are the top games. They're
Sure.
just there. And you kind of have to believe Nintendo when they say they're the top games.
Believe me. Yeah, no. It's I don't think it'll, I mean, I don't think anything will become like become like Steam or even like the iOS App Store, which is literally a garbage dumping ground.
Mhm.
But I just find it funny or kind of ironic because I mean Nintendo became popular when like during the NES era because their seal of quality, because there was so much garbage out there in the world of games, and they literally put a stop on that by being like, we're only allowing quality games onto our system, and that's what kind of saved video games in general. That I hope they don't let the floodgates open too much and just let the Switch become a dumping ground.
My assumption is that because the Switch's library at least in the first year, was pretty sparse. It's really up at this point. It has a decently fleshed out library, but it really took up to now to have one. So I can totally see why they would have been more interested in just letting like whatever go on there. Like one of the things that there are a ton of on Switch are arcade ports, like the Neo Geo arcade ports. There's like a bunch of those, and I keep like wanting to buy them. I think I bought like Metal Slug 3 or something, and then I played it and I remembered, oh yeah, arcade games are not actually worth paying for because they literally are a half hour of gameplay.
Yeah.
So
they're quarter munchers.
Yep. That's when you have something that gives you unlimited quarters, then you don't die, and then you just play the game all the way through, and then you realize that there isn't actually that much gameplay.
No, it's like a fireworks display, pretty much.
Yeah.
Although interestingly, though, I think that even though there are a lot of games coming on there, you always hear these stories about these indie devs who are like, the sales on Nintendo Switch are like better than all of the other sales combined ever that we've had.
I was gonna bring that up actually. I don't remember what the game was, but Jim Sterling did something where he was talking about this past week, and he was talking to a dev, and they were saying that, hey, we put this on Steam and almost nobody bought it because it got buried under the deluge of all the other stuff that comes out on Steam, and we couldn't get visibility. And then we put it on the Switch, and it sold like 20 times more copies. And like I said, not that many games are coming out week to week on Switch, especially compared to Steam. So you're going to get more visibility just based on that, even though there isn't any kind of rating system to boost you. But yeah, I'm kind of hoping that as time goes by, Nintendo gets more restrictive with what content they let on there, which I think they probably will, because they will have fleshed out the library and will feel like they can do that.
Yeah, they have the bed set, the groundwork laid. Yeah, come on, Miyamoto, tighten the belt.
All right, so ubiquitous software.
Da 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 da. Yves Guillemot has fought off the invaders.
He did it. So he did it. Yeah, we reported quite a bit over the past year about how their company was going to be gobbled up by Vivendi. Vivendi was buying all sorts of stock in Ubisoft, and man, it really didn't seem like Guillermo was going to be able to hold on.
Guillermo.
Yeah, Guillermo del Toro. That's who.
Yeah, Guillermo del Yves Guillemot. Yeah, no, this has been going on for a while, and I think everyone kind of had the preconceived notion that it was just a matter of time. Mm-hmm. It was just like, oh, well, Vivendi's huge. They're just going to chip away until they just own all of Ubisoft. But fucking those stubborn French bastards, they stood their ground and didn't let it happen.
So basically, Vivendi, they convinced Vivendi to sell off all of its 30.5 million stocks, which is 27.3% of Ubisoft's share capital, and agree not to acquire any within the next 5 years.
That part's crazy. That they basically put like a restraining order on them financially.
Now they got a bunch of different individuals and companies to come in and buy stocks, which is what they had been trying to do over the past year, and also buy as much stocks as they could themselves. But this story tells us they got two different entities to buy a big chunk. The first one is one that makes perfect sense, which is the company Tencent, who are the Chinese mobile games, company.
I think they're mostly mobile games, but I think they're just a conglomerate. They're just a huge kind of umbrella corporation.
And they purchased 5.6 million shares. And the other one was the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan. Yep,
they got to diverse their portfolio, I guess, into video games.
And they bought 3.8 million. So
which
now,
is not an unsubstantial amount. It's a pretty
no,
big chunk.
it's like pretty close to the amount this giant Chinese conglomerate
Yeah,
purchased.
yeah. So I guess Ontario teachers are doing great.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, in other countries, the teachers have money, I guess.
Apparently.
But the this is really interesting. It was kind of unexpected and really nice to hear. It also means that we assume Ubisoft will be working with Tencent on some projects,
Oh yeah,
and maybe
absolutely.
they're going to be working with Ontario Teachers Union on a
I
project too.
guess.
I guess. Uh,
This is one of those stories that I like. Yeah, we've been following, or I've been following. Everyone's been following this whole Ubisoft thing for a while, and every time there's a story about it, it just reminds me of how much I don't know about stocks and investments and like economics and shit like that. Because like, why would the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan buy into Ubisoft, a fucking French company? You know,
well, they're in Ontario. They're French,
not technically.
sort of.
I mean, no, the Ontario's ruled by the Crown of England. So yeah, it's one of those things. I'm sure that like the pension plan's probably a fund that's like you know, controlled by a fund manager who tries to make the most out of the pension plan money, I guess. And he happened to get a hot tip that Ubisoft was looking to sell out their stocks. I guess it's just one of those things that I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't understand stocks and will never be rich.
Well, what I assume happened is that Ubisoft was going to whoever they could find who had money to buy stocks, and they were so thorough in the people they went to that they decided to go to the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan.
Sure, yeah.
I think that's my assumption of what happened is they were going to track down any organization they could possibly find who were looking to purchase a large amount of stocks. So it didn't really matter to them so much who it was.
And maybe people that wouldn't be more aggressive with the stock buying after the first buy, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, and then Tencent, who, I mean, they're kind of almost scary because you hear about them all the time now, but like with all their fingers into multiple pots, you know.
Well,
they seem to have...
that's actually my worry. If you're looking to get people who aren't going to be aggressive like Vivendi was, it seems strange to have Tencent come on board. But at the same time, Tencent doesn't have that much. They certainly don't have as much as Vivendi had. So maybe Ubisoft has a plan in place in case Tencent decides to start taking the same tact that Vivendi had taken. Hopefully they do. They probably do.
Ubisoft might have. I mean, it might have been a part of the agreement where it's like you can't buy more than this or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, considering they put this 5-year kibosh on Vivendi doing anything, they probably had similar language for Tencent. It just isn't mentioned in the article. But I will point out that the reason why, or at least part of the reason why Vivendi agreed to do this deal is because it got around 2.47 billion for the transactions, which is more than double the 919 million it paid for them over the past few years. So because Ubisoft has been doing so well with its games, got that new Assassin's Creed doing real well, and all those microtransactions making them all that money, because they have grown and been very successful and their stock has gone up, it was much easier to be like, Vivendi, you should sell off all your stocks because look at the hefty profit you made.
Yep.
And I guess that was good enough for them.
It'd be good enough for me. Man, imagine being rich.
Nah. Nah. So
good for Ubisoft, good for the Guillemot family. You know, you can say what you want about their games or whatever. They're kind of, I always root for them because they're keeping it family owned.
Yeah, you know. and that clearly matters a lot to them because you can tell that they're not just doing this for the money, because if they just cared about the money, they'd take a big buyout from Vivendi and go away.
Right.
Because Vivendi certainly would have been happy to give them a whole lot of money. I mean, that's what they were trying to do by buying all the stocks, was just give them a whole lot of money so that they could get the company. But yeah, they care about keeping it. They care about running the company themselves, keeping it in the family the way it's always been, and I respect that quite a bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, vive la Ubisoft.
Vive la Guillemot. Vive la Ubisoft. Vive la Revolution.
They did it. They did it.
They did it.
So, talking about revolutions.
Yeah. possible ones.
Possible ones. The game industry.
The game industry. So this is a long article by our boy Jason Schreier, who is the only man really doing any news in the video game world. And I'm not going to read the whole thing or any of it really. More to just bring up a discussion. So GDC this week, which is the Game Developers Conference. And if you're unaware, GDC is not like E3. It's not a sales and marketing expo. It's basically like for developers by developers. It's people getting together and discussing trends in the industry, discussing how they made their games and stuff like that. So it's really not for the average consumer, although it can still generate some cool things out of it. And apparently through the week that it's been happening over in San Francisco, a large amount of people have been talking, game developers have been talking, how it's possibly time to think about unionizing. And this is not something new. This has been something that game developers have been talking about for a while. The thing is, in the games industry, there is no unionization. Unlike the film industry, where it's heavily unionized, where on a film set, like if someone wants to move a cable, and the cable guy from the cable guild isn't there to move it, they can't touch it. And it kind of everything grinds to a halt as a result. That's an extreme example, but you get the idea. Everyone is kind of in the union in the film industry, and when you're in a union, you have certain protections so that the big money men at the top can't fuck you over and treat you like shit and make you work overtime without getting paid overtime, and give you, your fair shake, gives you leverage and control. And in this article from Jason Schreier, he talks about how at GDC there was a what did they call it? There was a meeting headed by the International Game Developer Association called Union Now? ? Pros, cons, and consequences of unionization. And basically they just went over the idea of unionizing, what it would look like in the games industry, how they would go about it. And it was obviously clear that a majority of the game developers, almost everyone, is for it. They want unionization. And the reason that they would want unionization is because of things like crunch, which is basically this horrible practice in video games development where people are basically, well, they're not forced, but they're more or less forced to work 80-hour work weeks to finish a game on a deadline, basically killing themselves for this kind of stuff, and not really getting compensated. And they can't really do, and the devs can't really do anything about this because they don't have any unionization leverage. They can't really go to the producers who say, no, you need to get this game out on this date. And they can't say, well, we don't want to. And then they're like, all right, well, you're fired then. That's it. Interestingly enough, I think she's not the president, but someone higher up in the International Game Developers Association, Jen McLean, seems to be kind of anti-unionization for the games industry. And the people that are against this kind of unionization have some rhetoric that they usually kind of say about how, well, if companies or entire sections of the game industry start unionizing, the producers are just going to take it to countries that don't have unionization laws, or they're going to outsource it somewhere else, and then the entirety of the games industry is going to be, or the people that are trained to do it are going to be out of a job. And
that's common anti-union rhetoric for, I think, any industry.
It is, yeah. Because, and I mean, as Jason brings up in this article, I think it's pretty obvious is that if the producers wanted to do that, now they could do that. They don't need unions around. Mm-hmm. If they wanted to, if they get pissed, they can just outsource it anyways. And in fact, it is usually outsourced. The one thing that I think is true, or not true, but it's something to think about in the anti-unionization rhetoric, is that it is tough to unionize an industry the way that the film industry is unionized. So if you went through the entire games industry and started unionizing artists and programmers and game like level designers and narrative writers and all this separately as their own guilds, it's going to be really hard because a lot of game companies are separated across the world. A lot of companies have studios all over the world, and how do you handle that across international law without it getting super messy? But I do like I think it's a more elegant solution if individual companies decide to unionize. So like Naughty Dog as a company has a union. Kojima Productions has a union. Capcom has a production has a union, because the thing is that the way that people like games are a art, and they are created like any other art form. It takes time, it takes experimentation, and the development process is just not the same from studio to studio. Each studio has its own way of doing things, and therefore, like a flat unionization rule across the entire industry is not going to work for everyone, because some people, like the way Telltale works is not the same way that Sony Santa Monica works. You know, they work very differently, and they have very different goals. So I think the idea of having a company unionization is the correct one, and one that could probably better suit the devs, because they could choose the things they want leverage over and the things that they don't care about, instead of having it just kind of be industry wide. But I think that whatever the solution is, and I don't know the solution, it has to be something, because at least the stories of the horrors of crunch in the games industry, and the kind of the shitty way that a lot of devs are treated, it's barbaric, quite frankly. And we all want our games, and we all want our games on time, but we should not want them at the agony and the misery of someone's life.
Yeah. It's interesting when the voice actors did their strike. Yep. A lot of people were really upset a lot of people who were upset at them. I shouldn't say a lot of people were upset at them, because many people were very supportive, but the people who were upset at them were saying, but what about the devs and the programmers and stuff who have to work through these crunch weeks, and they don't get to strike or do anything like that? And the counter argument to that was, well, they should unionize then. And,
right.
And then they can avoid being treated like garbage, and if they're treated like garbage, they can strike. And that seemed like a foreign concept to so many people. Yep. Which especially in America, unions seem like a foreign concept to so many people, which is bizarre, because we created unions here. We have a whole day for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we created the unions, and we created the organizations to crush the unions.
Yeah, we were really ahead of the curve on all that stuff. So it's also interesting because one of the things you were talking about with outsourcing, when you're in any other industry, or not any other industry, but a lot of other industries that produce goods, you can outsource because those goods might be sneakers or some other kind of clothing or furniture or something like that. And you can go to a country without any union laws that has sweatshops. I'm looking at you, India, and you can and big corporations can churn out stuff for basically nothing. But I don't know how you do that with video games, because most of the time the people who are programming need to know programming, which means they needed to have grown up in a country where they had access to technology and education to learn programming. And most countries that have that have unions.
Yeah. And not only that, but it's not even just like programmers for video games are not just like code monkeys either. They have to work closely with developers and artists, and because they're not just writing code that's just is like for simple tasks. It's for very specific, very bespoke tasks, and yeah, so it's like you can have a bunch of code monkeys in some other country just banging out code all day, but it's like that's not going to work for like a rock star, like they're going to need that in house.
And and so I don't see how, like, because even we could look at maybe, I don't actually know what Russia's union laws look like. I kind of just assume they're bad, but they could be good. I don't know. But you could see like Russia or like an Eastern European country as being like a video game outsource type place, right? Where they have a bunch of people working on code there. But even in that scenario, I seriously doubt you as the game devs or the game producers are going to save that much money going to a country like that. So I don't. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of reason for devs to unionize, because they're offering something that you really can't get from other places, from other people. So they have more leverage than I think they realize they do.
They do, and I think that all through GDC, I've heard a couple different sides of this argument. I've heard some people that are for it, and some people that are. I haven't heard anyone that's specifically straight up against it, but I have heard people, even like the woman that is that's sort of against it in this talk. They want something to be done, but they're just not exactly sure the exact method to get there. And there was one guy I was listening to. He was a ex. Lead developer for, I think, Sony Santa Monica, and he was talking about how he's like, it's hard when people look at other unions, specifically the film industry. He's like, you have to realize that like the video game industry is nothing like the film industry, in that it is not a production. There's not like a standardized production pipeline. He's like, video game teams, even ones into the hundreds that have tons of programmers and artists and animators and stuff. He's like, everyone is an artist. Like everyone is doing creative work. Unlike, say, like a film shoot, like there is a lot of creative work being done, but at the same time, like it's a streamlined solution. It's like some guy's got to hold a boom mic, some guy's got to curl up cables. Like it's more of a laborious kind of well-trodden path. And he's like, in video games, we might spend months down one alleyway, and then all of a sudden we all realize that we got the game hook wrong. Like the game hook that we thought we had is wrong, and all of a sudden we accidentally come across something that's way better, and we have to go down that other path. We have to say, oh shit, we got to go try this other thing because it might make this way better, and I can relate to that, because ultimately he was saying, he's like, the thing is with crunch, it ends up being that a lot of people don't know when to stop. A lot of people working really want to make this a great piece of art. They want this to be an amazing game, so they're willing to kill themselves a little bit. They shouldn't, though. They should have someone to say, no, you can't do that. And he's like, but, people get really jazzed about this. They want to make something amazing, so they're gonna sit, there for 80 hours a week and do this. And I can say from semi-personal experience, not on the level of making a video game, but I have worked on creative projects that have had deadlines, and creative projects that I was really, really invested in, specifically musical projects, and you do get in the weeds, and all of a sudden you're working way too much on it, and it's just like, you lose yourself, and it's like, wow, I haven't eaten in a couple days. Like, this sucks, because you're really into this creative thing. So I can see how these kind of things spiral out of control in video games, but at the same time, video games are a super expensive industry. There's a lot of money there, and the management should know better, and the management should know how to plan this stuff out without having these horrible, horrible crunch periods in their games, ultimately. And I think unionization is something of a stopgap to that. That'll allow them to not mess up that much.
So we will see what happens with that in the future.
It'll be slow. It'll
definitely be slow. It'll probably be very painful. There's going to be some negative rhetoric thrown back and forth, I'm sure.
Yeah. But as Jason Schreier mentioned, though, in this, or someone else said to him, it's like, once one company does it, once one big company decides to do it, it's going to be like dominoes. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just going to start falling. All the other companies will fall in line once they see it work.
Yep. So, very interested to see where that leads.
Yeah.
Now, switching gears to a big company that I would love to adopt union practices. EA and DICE.
That'll be the last one.
Yeah, they'll definitely be the last one. EA will be the last.
Or Activision probably will.
So, Star Wars Battlefront 2, this is an update on all of the crazy stuff we've done on that. A short one because, man, I don't want to talk about this game anymore.
No. I do like how in the email you sent me with the stories, the headline for this one was Battlefront 2's final solution. And I was like, are you equating them to Hitler?
That was private. That was private correspondence.
I know.
So, no, they have decided to they have come up with a solution for their microtransaction problem, and they have revamped microtransactions. Now, star cards, which are the things that you can used to be able to get in loot boxes, which could give you an advantage in gameplay, give you more skills or upgrade your skills for your character to make you better at the game. Those are no longer available in loot boxes. Now loot boxes only contain cosmetic stuff.
Hey.
And all of the star cards are things you can get, but you can only unlock through grinding in game. That's it.
Yep. So they basically made it the way everyone else does it.
Yep. Which is the model they should have started with. But yeah, so they've decided on that. That's there's a new update coming. That's what's going to have. There's also going to be a cosmetic or microtransaction store where you can just buy cosmetic stuff, and you can, you don't have to try to buy a pack to get a certain thing, and like maybe you'll get it, maybe you won't. Instead it'll be like, oh, I have the extra cash or in-game money, and I will go to this storefront and purchase this cosmetic thing that I want. I can just have it. Which is also for the good, because that sort of circumvents the gambling aspect of loot boxes. So, yeah, I mean, cool. Now it just has normal microtransactions.
Now it's just like every other game. Yeah, I think it's so funny that like Battlefront 2 or EA comes back with its hat in its hand, all ashamed of what it did and causing the loot box apocalypse last year. And they're like, we're sorry, we're just going to be like every other game with microtransactions now. We're not going to be super greedy.
Yep. So cool. I'm glad this happened. This is the baseline for what should have happened, and it has happened. It just took them a really long time to do it. So I'm not gonna slap them on the butt. Congratulations.
No, God no.
I'm just gonna say, good. You did the minimum you should have done.
This is what it should have been from the beginning, and none of this bullshit would have happened.
Yep. Oh, so now we can stop talking about that. Finally.
Now we can talk about trends that make a shit ton of money besides their loot boxes.
Yeah.
Or because of them in some cases.
So we've talked quite a bit in the past about PUBG versus Fortnite, and it seems that the war of those two has started to shift a little bit.
It is escalating in Fortnite's favor. This is from WCCF Tech, which I don't think we have ever used.
No, we have. We have.
Oh, really?
Because I've already got the zoom in on the page, was already set.
Oh, there you go.
So we've used it at least once before.
Nice. This is by someone named Erno. Epic's Fortnite has surpassed PUBG in total revenue for the month of February 2018, and there are signs that Bluehole's Battle Royale is at risk of falling behind the competitors. That's what the research from Superdata writes. While Epic's Fortnite harvested $126 million of revenue on both PC and console, Bluehole's PUBG had to settle with $103 million across PC and Xbox One. In addition, unique weekly Twitch viewers indicate that PUBG's trajectory is slowing down compared to Fortnite's, which is in fact progressing steadily upwards. Quote, Fortnite has already overtaken PUBG in many success metrics, Superdata writes. Quote, during the last week of February, Fortnite had 14 million unique viewers on Twitch compared to the 8.7 million for PUBG. Compare this with their performance in the fourth week of January when PUBG had 8.5 million unique viewers while Fortnite had 6.1 million. In February, Fortnite passed PUBG in total revenue on PC and console, 126 million versus 103 million. While Fortnite continues its steady upward trajectory, PUBG revenues peaked in December, the month it left Steam Early Access on PC and launched on Xbox One. And they say something that I think is pretty clear regarding why Fortnite is kind of trouncing at the moment. And they say, quote, Fortnite's advantage boils down to accessibility, Superdata continues. The game is free to play, while PUBG costs $30, and it arrived on consoles in September 2017, several months before PUBG. Fortnite also has an easier learning curve and is more kid-friendly thanks to its cartoonish looks. These factors have combined to make Fortnite a bona fide social phenomenon, inspiring high school exams and finding its way into sports celebrations. The title's recent mobile launch also appeals to young players without access to game-ready PCs or consoles. This is the Fortnite. The story of Fortnite has been absolutely fascinating to me. You had this game that came out, had been worked on forever, was basically a joke in the games industry. It's like, oh, Fortnite again. We heard about it, E3 over E3. Finally comes out, no one gives a shit about it. No one cares at all. Epic seems to be going to have to take it on the chin in terms of, this big game that they were hoping to make. PUBG comes out, Fortnite's like, oh, well, we like that game mode. So they make that game mode, and all of a sudden it's a huge fucking hit. Funniest thing I think is that PUBG is made with the Unreal Engine, which Epic owns the Unreal Engine, and their battle royale game runs on it too.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, and I think it's so funny because I was talking to someone else, and I was saying like I just don't understand why Fortnite is doing so well, and they're like, it's how can you not? It's like Minecraft. It's free to play, and it has cartoonish looks, so parents aren't afraid, and it has building in it, and and it's free to play. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess that's true. I guess it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating thing. I think it's so funny that Epic, like, no one cares about the actual game mode that they built for the game. It's just about this clone that is now doing better than the game that it was intended to clone.
No, I think it's interesting because I was watching some footage of gameplay by a streamer that we're going to talk about in a second. And he was actually talking to a person he was playing with about PUBG and Fortnite. And he was just like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, I was playing PUBG, but now I just play Fortnite because it runs better.
Yeah, that's the craziest thing is that, like I said, they both run on Unreal Engine, but Fortnite is made by the team, or well, maybe not the exact team, but the same people that make the Unreal Engine. So they're the best engineers, some of the best engineers in the video game in terms of making their engine. So of course the Fortnite's going to run great.
Yeah.
PUBG still is a janky pile of mess. Like, it still does not run great. And that for a lot of people, that and it being free to play is a huge. I mean, that's the ticket right there.
Well, this is one of the reasons why I was so shocked when PUBG came to consoles that they put a price tag on it. Because I was like, I mean, I assume you'll still do really well, and they are still doing really well. I'm not shedding that many tears for PUBG.
Oh, yeah.
But,
no. I mean, they're still doing amazingly well.
Yeah, but
just not as amazingly well as Fortnite.
Yeah, but I was just surprised that they were going to put a price tag on something when there was already something on consoles that was free, that was the same.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because PUBG has loot boxes, but they do not. Some people are into them, but they're really downplayed. They're not the main focus of that game whatsoever. Like, you get a beige shirt. That's the most that you get from a loot box. Yeah. Whereas Fortnite, and this is the interesting thing, is that all of this money that Fortnite's making is from microtransactions because there is no initial cost to the game.
Also, a mobile version of PUBG just came out.
Yep, and Fortnite.
So they're both, they can't escape each other. They just keep going to the same markets.
And in fact, I think when PUBG came out, it instantly launched to the best-selling iOS game, I think, ever or something.
Definitely.
Because that's the world we live in now. Everything is just the best-selling thing ever of all time. I think there was a story last week, or maybe it was even this week, that the Switch is now like the best-selling, fastest-selling console of all time or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, wow, video games. Yeah. Never thought this would be the world I live in when I was nearly 30.
So it's interesting. I think I don't know. I don't know if I have strong feelings either way, but
I've tried both of them, and I prefer PUBG just because I'm a fucking hardcore dude that has a 30-year-old keyboard that I play video games on. But Fortnite does run better, and it does have if you're into the more cartoonish look, then that's perfect for you, and if you like the building aspect, that's perfect for you. The reason why I do like PUBG is the realism to it, you know. But I mean, Fortnite plays great, and it is fun. But yeah, I prefer the other one. So.
All right. So
there's also. I just want to also say that it's not like. This is not new or anything. Like, the video game industry is based on clones and copying people, and I mean, we saw you see this constantly with, like, back in the day with RPG mechanics when everything started having those, and now no one even talks about that. Everything's open world now after Fallout 3, the MOBA craze. It's all about chasing trends and all about copying people. So this is not surprising, really.
True. Yep.
True that.
So, speaking of Fortnite, have you ever heard of Ninja?
Not until a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, this dude named, what is his real name? Tyler
Blevins.
Tyler Blevins is a streamer on Twitch and sort of also a YouTuber. And man, he makes a lot of money.
Sure does.
He's the new hot streamer. He is a 26-year-old who makes $500,000 a month streaming video games. There was this sort of blew up this week because CNBC did a big interview with him, and I watched most of the interview, and it's kind of cringy just because it's like these stuffy like people who watch markets all day being like, so you make $500,000 a month playing video games. What's up with that?
You mean it's like any interview of mainstream press with video games people ever?
Yep. But one of the interesting things about this interview, and why I thought it was worth mentioning, well, a couple things, but I think one of the reasons why I'm so interested in it is because I watched it, and Ninja is seems like a good and responsible person.
Yeah.
Which, when we look at a lot of the big YouTubers and streaming stars, I think the one that comes to mind for everybody is PewDiePie.
Yep.
And if there's anything PewDiePie has proven to be over the years, it is not responsible.
No.
I think you could make an argument as to whether he's a good guy or not, but he's definitely not responsible.
No.
And whereas Ninja seems like if he's going to be the new face of streamers, I am happy to have him be the face of streamers.
Sure.
So I'm kind of...
he has a really wholesome background. He's got like brothers and used to play Halo and got really good at it and started doing competitions, and like his family like cheers him on and stuff. It's like it's all very wholesome and nice.
Yep. It's and he blew up I think it was last week. Yeah, March 15th. When he played Fortnite with Drake of musical star fame. And it was, let's see, he talks about what his main statistics are. Somewhere, maybe it's not in this article, but somewhere it was saying that like his stream with Drake...
it was crazy. It broke all kinds of records.
It almost broke like 1 million concurrent views or something insane like that.
Yeah.
Which for any solo streamer was like the most Twitch had ever gotten ever.
Yeah.
I think that it's that like the Dota championships and other big game tournaments on Twitch have still gotten more concurrent viewers. But this is...
That makes sense though, because it's like the Super Bowl or whatever.
Yeah, the Super Bowl video games had got more concurrent viewers than this, but the fact that this is right under that is really impressive and super interesting, and it's a good example of just like sort of what do you want to call it, like cross media collaboration, where you have one person who's very famous in the world of video games and has his audience there, and then you have someone else who's very famous with an entirely different group of people. Yeah,
with the rest of the world.
Yes, and they team up to do something, and then everybody watches.
Yeah, and I want to say like it's good for Mr. Blevins, Mr. Ninja Blevins. I think this is really just it's a sign of the times. Like I don't think he'll be the last to kind of have these huge spikes in popularity. I think we're in an age now where like really popular singers and musicians and stuff, they're into video games too. Like it's not that weird anymore for someone like Drake to play Fortnite when he's not touring, or in the studio. Like Snoop Dogg streams, like I think it's, and like I think another good example is D&D, where we're in a renaissance of D&D right now, where there's a ton of really famous people coming out of the woodwork, like Vin Diesel, for instance, who come out of the woodwork and they're like, oh yeah, I love playing D&D. It's awesome. I've been playing it since I was a kid. And then they go and do shows on like live play games of D&D or whatever that get huge amounts of views because, they're popular from movies or whatever. And it brings everyone into this to a new kind of thing. It brings a bunch of people that didn't know what D&D was into it, or it brings a bunch of people that didn't know what Fortnite was into it because Drake's playing it. And I think that's just going to happen more and more because as the age of famous people is younger than the people that don't know what video games are, they're just going to share what they love more and more. And that happens to be streaming Fortnite on Twitch or playing D&D on Twitch.
Just real quick, Blevins has 4 million followers on Twitch, 5 million on YouTube, 1 million on Instagram, and 1 million on Twitter. None of that is really particularly surprising considering the numbers he's drawing in. He plays Fortnite primarily. And he said during the interview that I think it's near the end of the article here.
I also wanted to say that I think that PewDiePie still makes like over $1 million a month.
Oh yeah, no, PewDiePie's still bigger.
Yeah,
but I like.
Not that it matters really. I mean, if you're making $500,000 a month, you're fine. Like, you're doing good.
But he talks about when they ask him in the interview, you know, like, oh, you're making all this money playing video games. Do you want what do you have to say to kids out there who just wanna be like you? And he said specifically, all the kids out there, you can't just drop everything and focus on playing video games for a living. It's also becoming a very competitive career choice right now, and you want to make sure that you're securing your future. So he talks about how when he first started playing Halo and competing professionally, doing Halo stuff, he was still attending college and working a part-time job and being, you know, a responsible adult. And he would say, if I was getting my homework done and getting good grades and doing like outdoor activities, like he talks about how he played soccer, and I was finishing up my shifts at work and making money that way, then I would say, okay, well, now any other free time I have, I can play as many games as I want in. Which is great. It's really good advice. He says, hey, diversify.
Yeah, be responsible. Yeah. Don't fucking put all your eggs
in one basket. That's never a good idea.
Yeah, and I do like at the very end, and they say, you know, what are you going to do with all the money that you made? And he's like, I'm definitely investing it and saving as much as possible. I don't plan on doing anything crazy with it. It's like,
yeah. And this
is one of those situations in a year we're going to figure out that this guy collects like baby toes in jars in his basement or something.
Probably. But no,
it's never good. It's never all good.
He mentioned that he and his wife donate to charities a lot, and they foster animals.
Jesus Christ.
So no, he sounds like the best person.
Yeah, the baby toes are just waiting to be found.
Yes. So cool.
Good for him.
Yeah, it's good for him, and it was really the whole Drake stream thing was interesting. I'm interested to see more stuff like that happen in the future of video games.
Totally will.
So now that we're almost completely out of time, tell me about CD Projekt Red.
Yeah, I'll just really quickly go over this. CD Projekt is how it's pronounced, Lex, please. CD Projekt, we all know that Cyberpunk 2077 is coming out, and they talked about it a little bit at I think it was a live streamed investors call. Basically, they confirmed what we all pretty much knew, is that Cyberpunk's going to be a huge single-player, story-driven RPG. But they did basically do what CD Projekt's been doing, which is act awesome. In terms of, what did they say? The first thing we're going to discuss is the immense story-driven roleplay for the single player, without any micropayments whatsoever, without any hidden things whatsoever, just as was the case for The Witcher 3. When he was asked about if there was going to be multiplayer, he said that they're not saying yes or no at the moment. Everything's on the table, basically, and that was pretty much it. They did say that technology-wise, Cyberpunk is very advanced. Our technology is ready to interface with future generations. This game is developed in such a way that it can use the future, very powerful equipment, but I cannot tell you more beyond that today, as no future generation of console has been announced. And he did say that they're not going to go on the Switch because this game's too fucking big and powerful.
Yeah, surprising no one.
Yeah, sorry, Switch users, but you have to draw the line somewhere.
Yep. So yeah, this game's going to be an immense story-driven single-player RPG. Yeah. And it's gonna take some crazy hardware to run it. Shocker.
Yep. Shocker. And in the other part of the CD Projekt News Minute, they launched a new studio in the town of, what I had to look up how to pronounce it. It's pronounced Wrocław, although it does not look like that when written out. But basically, they bought up this new studio. It was a former Techland. People that were in Techland made a new studio, and now CD Projekt has brought them out. And they're just talking about how they're very happy to be working with CD Projekt, how awesome they are, and Of course, they're like one of the coolest studios in my opinion working right now. So of course you'd want to work with them. The cool thing that kind of connects these together is that there was a Reset era forum thread that I couldn't actually find again while preparing for the show because I'm a bad games press person. Basically, there was a leak. Somebody that on the inside, and once again, rumors, take it all with a grain of salt. They kind of leak some things. One is that Cyberpunk is going to be at E3 this year, and it's going to be a pretty chunky showing. It's not going to be a trailer or something. They're going to show like 20 minutes of actual gameplay, which sounds fucking great if it's true. Another thing is that this company, this Wroclaw based company that they bought up, are going to be working specifically on 2077 multiplayer. So CD Projekt, the main company, is working on the whole single player, and then later on this company is going to come out with the added-on multiplayer, which they have this entire company is going to work just on the multiplayer. Once again, rumors, grain of salt, but that's kind of the buzz, the words around Poland, I guess. And all I can say is, like, as much as I think The Witcher 3 is probably one of the most important games of the past 10 plus years in terms of the bar that it set for open world games, but it can go absolutely fuck itself compared to how excited I am for Cyberpunk. Like, I honestly think like The Witcher 3 was a test for this company to make what they really were destined to make, which is Cyberpunk. Right. And I could not be more excited for it.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about games that just came out. This week, the week of this middle March week.
this summer of our discontent.
Or actually, we didn't have a show last week, as I recall. So they're talking about some other stuff. Flint Hook came out on the 9th for the Switch, which is a fantastic game. And if I didn't already buy it, I would buy it again.
There you
go. What else? Burnout Paradise Remastered came out for the PS4 and the Xbox on the 16th. Kirby Star Allies came out for the Switch. Big title for them. And I believe it's been getting pretty good reviews. People liked it. Let's see here.
Burnout Paradise Remastered.
Yeah, I just said that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I think I literally had a blank moment in my mind there.
On the 20th, we had Sea of Thieves come out for the Windows and the Xbox.
Oh, yeah.
That has been getting some mixed reviews.
Yeah.
Apparently, the content is kind of sparse in that game, and there are some annoying glitches in it. Also, and this is something I think we talked about. It's heavily dependent on whether you have a good crew with you or not, because if they're a bunch of jerk-offs that you're just randomly assigned to online, it's not fun to play with them. There's apparently even a feature the game has that that's like sent to Brig or something.
Yes. Yeah, you can put someone.
Yeah, where you and the rest of the people who are on your crew, when you're all joining the game, can all vote to have one of the players start in the Brig and just be locked up.
It's like the vote to kick functionality in like CSGO.
So that's actually pretty horrible.
It is. No, I played the final beta actually of it, and I played it for a couple hours, and I'm like, I think I see all of the content. I think this is pretty much. It's really cool, and I really love the ideas in it. I love the design of it, but I haven't read any reviews yet, but I can easily see that being a huge problem.
That was my big worry about this game, that it looked like, from all the gameplay I saw, I'm like, this kind of just all looks like you go to an island because you find a treasure map, and then when you get there, there's like a riddle that you have to solve, and then skeletons pop up.
Yeah.
And you destroy them and get the treasure and then go back to your ship.
And then you just hang out in your boat with your friends and play the hurdy-gurdy.
Yeah. And I was like, I mean, that sounds fun, but that can't be all this game is. And it seems like that's kind of all the game is.
It's unfortunate.
That's unfortunate. They need to... Maybe this might be one of those games where, like Rainbow Six Siege... if they keep putting more elbow grease into it as it goes, it might build a strong community.
I'm sure that's going to be the case, especially because it's on the Games Pass thing, their kind of Netflixy service. And I mean, that's what all games are now. I mean, pretty much all games are games of service. So
that reminds me, there was a whole thing about this where they were saying that it's having tons of server problems.
Ooh,
which
that's
a bunch of
unfortunate.
people are surprised by because they did lots and lots and lots of very intensive stress testing before the game launched.
They did, but I mean,
Um,
this shit happens to Blizzard too.
yeah,
So
no, I mean it happens to everyone, so we kind of expect some of it. But the speculation on why that's happening is because since this is on Game Pass, if a lot of people are using Game Pass, the game has a bigger influx of players than they were expecting.
yeah.
Which could be the reason. Is certainly an interesting theory. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so Sea of
Anyway.
Thieves came out on the 20th, a few days ago. Let's see here. A
Valkyria
Way Out.
Chronicles, man.
Oh,
A
who
way
cares
out.
about
But
that?
hold, Valkyria, no, fucking. Have you ever played any of those games? They're
No.
actually really, really cool. They're
Oh.
really good. I don't have a PS4, but play the other ones are on Steam, and they're fucking super good. Tactical, alternative history, World War II, anime games.
Yeah, get that anime in there.
It's good shit. It's really cool stuff.
So A Way Out came out
Yes.
today for Windows.
Fuck the Oscars.
Yeah, that guy. Windows, PS4, and Xbone. And I need to watch some gameplay of that. I actually have not seen what reviews are like for that game, but I am super interested.
Yeah,
So,
I want to check that out too.
the other
We should play it. We should play it on PC.
Oh yeah, we should. That'd be good.
Because I think you can actually, from what I've read, you only need to buy one copy to have to play.
Oh my god.
Maybe we
Oh
should look into that.
yeah. Also, biggest game of the year came out today. Detective Pikachu.
Of course.
For the 3DS, Ryan Reynolds as Detective Pikachu.
Yeah. It's so fucking strange.
Yeah, no.
Never change, Japan. Never change.
So weird. Let's see. We also had Nino Kuni,
Ni no Kuni.
2, Revenant Kingdom.
I've heard mixed reviews. First one is I never played it, but I always want to. It's a Studio Ghibli JRPG.
Yep.
Second one is very, very different than the first one.
Next week, Far Cry 5 is coming out. Hot
Yeah.
dog.
Excited about that.
That's
And
gonna be
Atelier Lydie and Soleil, the Alchemists and the Mysterious Pain.
I know what that is.
That's a mouthful.
So yeah, that pretty much does it for us today. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you watched on Twitch, we have been Don't Copy That Floppy, video game news podcast, broadcasting live Fridays 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on twitch.tv/DCTF podcast. If you want to support the show or check it out on social media, you could find us on Facebook, Twitter, Steam, YouTube, other places.
Angel Fire,
GeoCities. If you're looking on those places, our handle is either going to be DCTF Podcast, like it is on Twitter, or just search Don't Copy That Floppy Podcast. And we are hosted on the amazing site chipbit.net. Check that site out. It's good stuff. So yeah, if you want to support the show, there are two great ways to do that. One of them is you can go to our iTunes page, subscribe there, give us a rating, give us a review. That'd be fantastic. The other way is you can go to our Patreon page and give us money every month, and you get access to bonus content, more podcasting about talking about things that are not necessarily video game related, just other pop culture stuff.
pop culture.
Yeah, very cool. So that's gonna be it. That's the whole deal.
That's all she wrote.
So until next time, Chris, what do people have to remember?
Don't copy that floppy.